Good afternoon. Welcome to Hashtag Got Money. Melanie from Southeast Lawyers joins me today. Hey, Melanie, welcome to Hashtag Got Money.
Hi, Liz. How are you?
Good, mate. I'm good.
Your hair looks good today.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I did it especially for you. Actually,
Thank you.
I had to undo my bogan for today's show because we've got the 6 weeks lockdown down, and I'm spreading the bogan around a little bit too much lately, so I did pull it in just for this recording.
So in 6 weeks, we might find you looking a bit interesting compared to today.
I think quite feral. I'm going to go for a new feral look.
Okay.
Thanks. And I'm going to smash it out of the park. So Melanie and I just want to, there's a lot going on about the Home Builders Grant. And I get a lot of questions about it all the time. And I know that some of you might be finding our shows, I think you've seen 2 or 3 shows around this particular agenda, but it's pretty important for you, particularly if you're out there looking. Currently, there hasn't been any legislation on the program, which really gives Melanie and I a pretty good giggle, doesn't it, Mel?
It does.
We do love a giggle. And Melanie has gone ahead and kindly gone through and read the 21-page document called the National Partnership Agreement on Home Building, a Home Builder. Melanie, dive in for us. This is just a guideline. This is not actual legislation, is it?
That's right. So it's basically a partnership scheme offered by the federal government, and each state can sign up individually, but it isn't legislation that has been debated through the Victorian government. It is basically the federal government putting it out on a plate saying, if you'd like to be involved, sign this partnership agreement and we shall forward you funds. However, the partnership agreement does require Victoria to report on certain items, how many home builders there are claiming the scheme, what the demographic is, all of these sorts of things. And the scheme also requires the Victorian government to ensure that the people who are claiming this home builder grant are actually eligible, not just when they claim, but through the whole process.
What's eligible? So let's go back to that. So for those of you that don't know, obviously you're living under a rock, but the Home Builders Scheme is really an initiative created by the feds, or announced by the feds, that they were going to provide $25,000 towards a new build and...
or a substantial renovation. Mm-hmm.
Now, what it's done within the off-the-plan market, which is my area of specialty, is it's just exploded. And I think I said on one of the shows, my sister works out in the southeast, they saw 180 land lots sell on a weekend. And the problem with it in going into that market with that much vigor is that without the legislation, where people that are buying right now to get this money really have no idea how they're going to get it. That's why we feel like it's a really important conversation for us to have with you, because I know that in my audience are looking at this $25,000 as my clients are and going, gee, you know what, I'd really like to tap into that. So Melanie, this is a guideline. How do they get the $25,000? Is it evident in this document?
Yes, so they've got to hit certain eligibility criteria. So the first one is that you have to be a person, a living human being. Funny about that. It can't be a trust. It can't be a company.
Okay, good.
You have to be over 18, so there's no buying a property for your children. And you have to be an Australian citizen at the time that you are entering this program. So there, as far as I know, hasn't been any carve out for New Zealand citizens. And we are thinking that if you're in a couple where one person is an Australian citizen and one is not, that you're probably not going to be able to apply.
That's a bit mean though, isn't it, Mel? Can we say mean in a money show? It's a bit mean.
Sure. Yeah, look, it is a little bit, but there are ways around that. So what you would generally do is if you've got one party who is a citizen and one party who isn't, then get the citizen to apply for it as a single individual. It doesn't mean that the non-citizen isn't involved. The non-citizen can still be on the mortgage, liable to the bank. It just means that on title you would have that Australian citizen.
So one would be named as the title holder, the other one would just be the purchaser.
Borrower.
The borrower to go to the banks. Okay.
Yep. So you've got to have those things, generally speaking. And then you've got to hit certain income targets. So if you're an individual, you have to earn less than $125,000 a year. And that is based on your previous tax returns. So either the tax return you've just done, or if you haven't done this year's, well, the 2020 financial year yet, it'll be the 2019 one from last year. So 125 for a single, or 200,000 for a couple. And couple is legally married, registered domestic relationship, living as a couple on a genuine domestic basis, doesn't include siblings. So if you think that you're going to buy this with your sibling, which we see a lot of, you're not going to get this grant.
Isn't that a shame? Because in some cases you need the sibling to stabilise the borrowing capacity.
Yep, exactly. And if you were a couple who earned, let's say, $210,000 between you for a year, and you're not eligible, then you might want to consider again, does one of you earn less than $125,000? If so, will that person claim on their own? Because it does not require in a couple that both of you apply. So at this stage, we believe that you would be able to sort of extract one of the individuals to be...
I feel like we're being really naughty.
No,
telling
there's
people how to get
plenty
around
of
it.
reasons. I mean, asset protection is a good one. You wouldn't necessarily both want to be on title. There are industries in which you don't want to own anything, because if you get sued...
Exactly right. Then you've got nothing to take.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what about the timeframes? Are there still? Is that still tight?
Have timeframes, yes. So there are timeframes leading up to the settlement of your property, and there are timeframes afterwards. So it's really important to note that this is for principal place of residence, and you have to live in it for at least 6 months after the settlement takes place. And the State Revenue Office are really good at finding that sort of thing out. So if you rent it out at the 4-month mark, and you do it professionally with a bond being taken, the State Revenue Office have access to the bond register in Victoria.
Oh, they will
cross-reference them.
They will eat your face off.
Yeah, and then you will have to pay those funds back. And we've seen a lot of that with the first homeowners grant, so we don't expect it to be any different for this one.
Okay.
So should we talk about construction timeframes? Yeah,
because we've got, and look, there's some real problems in this currently. As far as I know, when I looked at the guidelines, and I was on the phone trying to talk to the Treasurer the other day, and then the State Revenue Office.
How'd that go?
They were fantastic.
Which one?
Both of them. State Revenue Office was lovely. She was nice, actually. State Revenue Office is a winner. Treasury, they flicked me. I kind of did the whole Treasury. I bounced around, talked to a lot of lovely people, but they didn't know much either. So the time frame is the issue. Look down, and we've sold a number of units in Geelong. And my lender, I said to my lenders, look, we've got to get our clients settled in their land so they can get straight onto the build, because the time frame's 3 months. Now, from the conversation I had with the State Revenue Office on Friday, they said there is no extension to time. Now, when I phoned the council in Geelong and said how long to get building permit, they said at least 3 months. There's a backlog, and you can't apply for a building permit until land's titled, and then the builder does all of his things and he goes ahead and applies for you. So it kind of feels like it's a program that's going to fail.
Look, it might. If it's boosting the number of homes built or renovated, surely at some point we're going to run out of builders. And if builders are subject to this stage 4 lockdown, then that's going to grind to a halt for 6 weeks. But we don't know that yet. We're waiting for Dan to make more announcements today.
We like Dan. So in this document,
that's a talk for another day.
He's quite eager. He's quite an eager beaver. Actually, we're going to do it. We're going to, Melanie and I have got an interview planned for that. In the National Partnership on Home Builder, in this guideline, did you see any movement or wiggle room for extensions?
Yes.
On that?
So your first important date is obviously when you enter into the contract, whether it's a land purchase or whether it's a build contract, has to be after the 4th of June.
Okay.
So if you have already signed a contract, you're not eligible. And State Revenue Office has already said if you've signed something and then you terminate it to be able to re-enter it, they'll be looking for those sorts of schemes.
They will eat your face off if you do not try and commit fraud with the Australian government, people. They will eat their face off.
So can't have commenced before the 4th of June.
Yeah.
And does not apply to owner builders either. So if you want to purchase an off the plan, the construction can have started prior to your signing. So if you want to sign today on an off the plan that is already 3 months in, that's fine. But 3 months in isn't fine, sorry. The OTP can't have commenced before the 4th of June. So if you sign up in October for an off the plan that has started on the 8th of June, then you're okay. But if you sign up today in respect of an off the plan that started in March,
forget it.
You're not going to be qualifying for that. It's all about trying to generate new building, new homes. Those ones from back in March, they're already on foot. So it doesn't apply to those.
So this is it's purely about stimulating the construction industry. Okay.
Yeah. So then you have to start the process, the build, within 3 months of the contract date. So if you sign on the 1st of October, you've got 3 months to start. However, that, as you said, is a problem for building permits.
But even the lenders, Melanie, look, the lenders, we are submitting contracts to go to the banks, and it's literally taking 2.5 months to go unconditional on a contract.
Yeah, we're seeing that with finance on existing purchases, that usually we'd say 14 or 21 days to obtain finance. And even after 21 days, we're asking for another month. It's massive. So that is a tip. If you can get an unconditional contract when you're selling your property now, you'd be very wise to do that, even if you have to accept a slightly lower purchase price.
If you want to get the home builders, the other thing we suggest you do is to get pre-approval. Get your funding pre-approval before you sign. That way, all you have to do is sign your loan docs. And if you have any questions about that, please come through to us, because that is what we want to do is we want people to at least be a foot ahead of this. If you haven't got your pre-approval, they're saying one of the biggest big four out there, they're taking 28 days just to pick up a loan doc, just to pick up the actual contract and look at it to see if there's any viability in it.
Yeah, there's a massive pile of loan contracts just sitting there, waiting to be allocated to somebody.
You think the banks would be like, whoa, they're not. They're asking the other thing too, which is frustrating. We're working with a really good senior lender, but he's coming back and having to re-ask us for information because when they picked up the file, there's been a whole month between picking it up and then going through to final certification. So they're saying, "Oh, can you resend those payslips?" Like we sent them. So please get pre-approval if you want to be a shoo-in.
Definitely. So there has been an extension available. The state government of Victoria has basically come to the conclusion that 3 months is not perhaps practical.
Perhaps not.
So they can grant an extension. It's up to their discretion. So you're not home and hosed on that. And they will consider things like delays in obtaining council approvals, difficulties in obtaining construction materials, inclement weather, health problems of somebody who's critical to the project, industrial disputes, and natural disasters. So we didn't think that would include COVID delays, but given that Dan declared a state of disaster yesterday, it may extend to issues with that, but I don't think you can rely on that. So the more you can get in place beforehand, the better.
Yeah, because it sounds to me too like they get to choose one way or the other whether they're going to grant it. It's not ironclad, is it?
No. And they have said that they are very unlikely to grant an extension where a purchaser has made deliberate, informed decisions that has led to an ineligibility, like not undertaking proper due diligence on a build contract, which is a very nebulous concept.
Oh my God. Entirely entirely nebulous. But the other side of it is true. I look at build contracts day in and day out, and even I don't understand them. How is someone that doesn't? I mean, you're a lawyer. Do you understand them really? I mean, I guess you do.
I do, but I don't like them.
Yeah, I mean,
yes. The commissioner is also unlikely to grant an extension if the builder has taken on more work than they could properly handle. So that was always one of our concerns. How are you supposed to know whether your builder has too much work on? And, you know, as a builder, as, you know, any sort of business person in this climate, we very rarely turn away work. And builders might genuinely think that they have enough capacity, but if we're out for 6 weeks on this construction industry, that is going to be a major issue.
Feels really ambiguous.
It does.
It feels
and
like
the other one, is if you've got a delay in construction when you're buying off the plan because the developer does not want to start construction until it sells a certain percentage of the project, that is not going to be on. So individuals, if you're buying off the plan, you really need to know how much of the plan has been sold. Say you sign on the 30th of November and the builder has only sold 10%, and you get your 3 months, and at the end of the 3 months they still haven't sold 60%, then yes, you can apply for an extension, but the maximum extension is 3 months. So you can see if they're waiting around to sell units, you might not hit the right timeframes, and that means you could still be subject to the contract. You can't pull out because you haven't hit the sunset date in the contract, but you're going to lose your grant. So that's going to be a problem.
It's I only know of one developer right now who was meant to start in July and is starting in October. So he's able to uncategorically put his hand on his heart and say, yes, we are good to go. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the other builders out there, you must go in and you must find out. And in actual fact, there are normally charts lurking with big red dots on it. Check out how many big red dots are on the chart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it still feels a bit flawed. When are they suggesting that we'll actually get legislation around this? Because won't every state get to basically say, okay, well, we like these guidelines, but we want to implement this? Because in WA, they automatically have a 6-month time frame. That's my understanding from one of the lenders that I use in WA, that it's possible to get another 3 months on top of the 3 months. Will Victoria be able to say, look, we don't mind the guidelines, but what we want to do is implement another? Do they get that flexibility inside of this?
They could implement their own legislation, but I don't think that they will at this stage. I think they want to keep it as flexible as they can. And it's not a federal government requirement that the states introduce their own legislation. So with everything else that's going on, I think that the state government will look at this and say, we're part of the scheme, we've released our own State Revenue Office guidelines, that's it. And the issue with that is that it's so up to the discretion of the State Revenue Office if you have a delay.
All of it.
That you can't enforce that. You have a right of appeal, but it's already a discretion. It's unlikely that they're going to say no on a discretion and then turn around and say yes on an appeal of a discretion. So
it just feels so flawed. You know, a lot of people have bought on the premise that they're going to get it as almost automatically, like they would their first time home buyers grant. Have they suggested how the payments are going to be made? Say you qualify. Say you're one of the 100,000 that actually qualifies. When do you get this money?
It's like there'll be 6 successful grants all over Victoria, right?
Woohoo! Woohoo! We've got the money.
So if you are doing a new build, then your grant gets paid after the foundation has been laid and the first progress payment has been made.
Okay.
And that gets paid direct to your bank account. We had originally thought that that might come through state revenue as part of the settlement process, but I guess the reasoning behind it is that you can pay your first progress payment and then get reimbursed for it, so that the builders are at least getting something up front from this scheme. But we'll see how that goes.
So the money, the $25,000, is paid directly to the purchaser, who will actually, in actual fact, instead of putting it against their mortgage, will go and buy themselves a brand new car and some furniture for their brand new house.
Yes. And then the risk with
qualify.
This is, if you take the 25,000 on your first progress payment and you've got it sitting there in your bank account and you don't save it for your next progress payment, or don't save it, you go out and you buy the flashy car and whatnot. If you get to the point where you can't make the payments on your build contract for whatever reason, and you have to break your build contract, you're going to be up for all sorts of penalties, breaches, damages, etc. with your builder. But the State Revenue Office is also going to want their $25,000 back. So don't spend it on something else is my best advice. Don't do it. Don't even think about it.
Oh my Lord.
So that's for the new build. If you are doing a renovation, a substantial renovation.
Let me just sit in the horror of home building, because what we're saying to clients is, look at it like a bonus. Like if it comes, it's fabulous, but we're telling our clients not to factor it in. Just don't factor it in.
Don't. It's an absolute bonus.
Like winning the lottery.
Yeah. If you need the 25,000 to complete, you are living too close to the wire on what you're buying.
Yeah, do not rely on it. That's what we're saying to our clients. And we've got some clients that are you know, they're delighted that there's an opportunity to have some actual liquidity in their properties, which we care about that for them. But
Mhm.
you know, when this was announced, when was it announced? Like the 3rd or 4th of June, just prior to
Oh,
June.
yeah.
We've been sitting around waiting for something that gives us some confidence, and so far, even from today's discussion, I still feel the same way that I felt when you and I initially started talking about this. It
Mhm.
just feels like it's too flimsy.
It'll be great if it works. That's my best comment. So for a substantial renovation, it won't
Oh
be
yes.
paid out until you can show that 150,000 of the contract price has been paid to the builder already. Yeah.
Oh Jesus, sorry. I just had to giggle. All of this is a bit of a giggle, isn't it really? I mean,
It is.
I'm,
Well, basically what it's saying to you is that if you're doing a build, if you're not buying it off the plan,
mm,
you need to have your finance in place for the whole thing, ready to draw down as you usually would if as though you don't have this grant. And this grant will be a nice little thing if you wanted to do a variation that wasn't covered in your first building contract, or you know, you want to buy your nice furnishings or whatnot at the end. It won't necessarily come at a time that you actually need it. I know.
oh,
I know.
Scott. We love the fact that you announced it. It was brilliant. Everybody gave you a round of applause. But if you could have made it just possible for the actual people that are going to stimulate the construction industry, if you could have made it possible for them to actually get the grant, that would have been just beautiful, wouldn't it, Mel?
And the off the plan is, so you've got your new build
Yeah.
from when your foundations are laid, and the first progress payment has been made.
Mm.
You've got your substantial renovation after 150, you can get your grant. But on your off the plan, you don't get the grant until you can show your name has been registered on the title. So you won't get that until settlement, basically. And that has to be done before the 31st of October 2022, which sounds like a lot of time, but I'm sure, Liz, you've seen that it's not a lot of time.
Not when you're buying not when you're buying an apartment in a 180 apartment site
No.
or something to that extent. Do you know what I mean? And those things take years to turn around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
So
if there are
you've
any
got
delays,
2 years basically.
well, Mel, thank you. You've really cheered me up. I love a good giggle.
Was there anything else I wanted to tell you guys?
Anything else? Any good news on this would be gratefully received, mate. Thank you.
Let
Anything
me
that's
have a think about that. Look, if it works, it
if
will
it
work for
works.
some people, which will be great. But I must note that the National Participation Agreement, sorry, Partnership Agreement on this, specifically has a clause that says, and I quote, the parties, which are the federal government and the state government, do not intend any of the provisions of this agreement to be legally enforceable. However, this does not lessen the parties' commitment to this agreement. So that, I think, says it all, that you should not rely on this. She's lost it. She's gone.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's just terrible, isn't it?
It is. And that's why it's not legislation from the Commonwealth Government. Because it's just a handshake deal at the end of the day.
You have to sign contracts to buy properties, but this program is a handshake deal where at any stage the government can go, nah, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Mel, thank you so much. You've really made
No
my
problem.
day. I love it when we discuss things like this. And yes, Scott, it was just when I heard it, I thought, you good Prime Minister, you. And now Melanie and I have really been picking it apart for a couple of months now, and we just want you to know, probably not a winner. Mel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not lay down the Zare. You need to really look at this carefully. And this is one of those things that you should definitely not wing. Don't say, I'm going to wing it.
Oh, God, no.
You
Do
should
not
not
wing
wing
it.
this. Do not wing it.
Do not wing it. And the other thing is to do not rely on it. If you get
No.
it, then it's a bonus, and it really is. It's a wonderful thing, but please don't be relying on it as part of transaction. Melanie, thank you for joining us. Melanie from Southeast Lawyers, you
Thank
are
you.
just a rock star. Melanie, people need to reach out to you to cry about builders bonus. How do they, home builders, how do they get hold of you?
You can go to our website, which is www.selawyers.com.au, or you can just Google Southeast Lawyers. We're in Croydon.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Stay safe, everybody. We'll be thinking about you. We've all commenced our 6-week lockdown together. And at some stage, I will do a Zoom meeting without my hair being done so we can look at how feral I am starting to look. Take care, be safe. And if you need us for anything, please reach out.
Thanks.